The video opens on a serene pre-dawn seascape. The sky is a canvas of deep purples and soft oranges. The atmosphere is deceptively calm, yet thick with an unspoken tension. Have you ever watched the dawn break and felt the promise of something monumental? A new day, a new beginning. But in the shadow of war, dawn doesn't always bring light. Sometimes it brings annihilation. On the night of the 22nd of June 2025, over the volatile Black Sea, such a dawn was about to break. But before the first rays of sun could touch the water, something else tore through the air in absolute silence. This isn't a story of massive naval fleets or multi-million-dollar missiles. This is the story of a ghost. A small, almost invisible entity born from ingenuity and the will to survive. It wasn't on any official military roster, nor was it mass-produced in a state-of-the-art weapons facility. It was a product of intellect assembled in a small workshop in Kyiv, from components you could find on the open market. An FPV first-person view drone, the kind many would dismiss as a high-tech toy for racing enthusiasts. But on this night, it was no toy. It was an assassin. Picture the scene. A military fortress worth hundreds of millions of dollars, a strategic outpost bristling with the latest surveillance technology, sits peacefully in the middle of the sea. Its advanced radar systems sweep the horizon, creating a seemingly impenetrable electronic shield. The Russian soldiers on the rig feel utterly secure. They are the eyes and ears of the fleet, the gatekeepers of critical sea lanes. They believe nothing can touch them without being detected dozens of kilometers away. They were wrong, because the threat wasn't coming from a roaring cruise missile or a squadron of bombers. The threat was skimming its belly, nearly kissing the white-capped waves, a phantom gliding over the black water, carrying 3 kilograms of explosives and a single mission to blind the eye of the enemy. This drone, costing less than $500, was about to rewrite the rules of naval warfare. It was the embodiment of asymmetric conflict, where intelligence and creativity could challenge overwhelming military might. The footage we are about to analyze is more than just an action clip. It's a historical document capturing the moment a piece of consumer technology became a game-changing weapon. It shows how a single, almost negligible strike could open the floodgates for a storm of destruction. A meticulously calculated operation to cripple one of Russia's most vital assets in the Black Sea. This attack wasn't just a military blow, it was a psychological one, a loud and clear statement that in this war, nowhere is safe. Join us as we dive deep into every moment of this audacious mission, starting with its target, an oil rig that had become a fortress at sea. Part 2. The Boyko Rig, the Invincible Steel Eye. The scene shifts to satellite imagery, highlighting the rig's strategic location between Crimea and Odessa. Graphics simulate the radar's sweeping coverage of the sea. To grasp the full significance of this attack, we must first understand its target. This was no ordinary oil rig. Since the beginning of the conflict, Russia had seized Ukrainian-owned drilling platforms, including the Boyko Towers, and transformed them into hardened military outposts. Their location could not be more strategic, sitting directly on the vital sea route between the Russian-occupied Crimean Peninsula and Ukraine's critical port city of Odessa. From this position, Russia could dominate a vast stretch of the sea, monitor all Ukrainian shipping, and project a constant threat. Among these rigs, Boyko Bravo stood out as the most crucial command and surveillance hub. Think of it as an artificial steel island, an unsinkable fortress. Russia had poured significant resources into its militarization. It was equipped with surveillance systems, communication arrays, and most importantly, an exceptionally powerful radar system known as the Neva-B. This was the jewel in the rig's crown, the primary reason it was such a high-value target. So what is the Neva-B radar? This is not a standard piece of equipment. Designed for maritime surface surveillance, the Neva-B operates on the C-band and is capable of scanning a massive area with a radius of up to 45 kilometers. Even more impressively, it could track over 200 surface targets simultaneously. For the Russian Navy, it was like having an all-seeing eye over the sea. Every Ukrainian ship, boat, or even smaller vessel that moved within its range was instantly detected. This data would be relayed to command centers, giving Russia ample time to dispatch warships or aircraft to intercept. The presence of the Neva-B radar on the Boyko rig had effectively crippled Ukrainian naval operations for months. It created a denial zone at sea, where any Ukrainian effort was monitored and thwarted. Reclaiming control of the western Black Sea, vital for grain exports and economic survival, became nearly impossible. The Boyko rig wasn't just a military base. It was an invisible shackle holding the Ukrainian Navy captive. Destroying it, or more specifically its Neva B radar, would be more than a symbolic victory. It would be an act of liberation. It would blind Russia's steel eye, creating a massive gap in their defensive network. It would give Ukrainian forces room to maneuver, to plan more ambitious operations, and most importantly, to reclaim freedom of movement on their own waters. But how do you attack such a heavily defended target deep within enemy-controlled territory? The answer lay not in a costly missile, but in a far more humble weapon, a silent killer forged from the seemingly innocuous. Part 3. Night Fury. The homemade assassin from the heart of Kyiv. Close-up shots of the FPV drone highlighting its DIY nature, zip ties tape, and the crudely but effectively attached explosive charge. This is contrasted with images of expensive polished military hardware. When we think of military hardware, we envision complex machines engineered by massive defense corporations costing millions if not billions of dollars. But the weapon that took down the Neva B radar was something else entirely. Its codename was Night Fury, and it was a living testament to the old saying, necessity is the mother of invention. Night Fury was at its core a 10-inch FPV drone, a popular size in the drone racing community. Its frame, motors, flight controller, all were assembled from cheap, Chinese-made components that any tech enthusiast could order online. The total cost to build this flying machine was estimated to be around $500, a laughably insignificant sum compared to the value of the target it was about to engage. But don't let its simple appearance fool you. Ukrainian engineers had transformed this hobbyist toy into a formidable weapon. They strapped to it a 3-kilogram charge of high explosives. This wasn't a professionally designed bomb casing. The charge was secured to the drone's body with common zip ties and reinforced with adhesive tape. It looked crude, but this very simplicity was part of its tactical genius. The key to Night Fury's lethality lies in the nature of FPV technology. Unlike traditional military drones that often fly autonomously on GPS coordinates, an FPV drone is flown entirely manually in real time. The operator or pilot wears a special set of goggles that receive a live video feed directly from a camera mounted on the drone. This creates a completely immersive experience, as if the pilot were sitting in the cockpit. They can execute complex agile maneuvers, fly nap of the earth, and guide the drone with pinpoint accuracy. And here is the crucial detail: the video feed from an FPV drone is an analog signal, not digital. While Russia's sophisticated electronic warfare EW systems are designed to jam the complex digital signals of modern military drones, they are almost helpless against this simple analog feed. The signal can get staticky, the image can distort, but it rarely cuts out completely. This allows the pilot to maintain control even when flying through heavily contested EW environments. Put it all together, and you have a nearly perfect weapon for this mission, small and hard for radar to detect, cheap and expendable, and resistant to common electronic countermeasures. Night Fury wasn't a product of peak military technology, but a product of boundless creativity. It was the weapon of an underdog, designed to exploit the weaknesses of a giant. But a weapon, no matter how clever, is only a tool. The one who truly made history was its pilot, a mysterious SBU operative who was about to take the flight of a lifetime. Part 4. Volts. The artist piloting. The Fury images of the pilot wearing FPV goggles, his face a mask of intense concentration. This is intercut with footage from the drone's point of view, streaking low over the water, creating a sense of speed and immersion. A weapon is only as good as the artist wielding it, and for this mission, that artist was an SBU operative known only by the codename V. From a clandestine bunker on Snake Island, V wasn't just flying a machine, he became one with it. With the FPV goggles strapped to his head, the world around him faded away, replaced by the grainy real-time image transmitted from Night Fury's camera. He was no longer on the island. He was airborne, skimming the waves of the Black Sea. Flying an FPV drone at high speed on a combat mission requires an extraordinary skill set. This isn't like playing a video game. Every minute twitch of the thumb on the control sticks translates into an instantaneous movement of the drone. It demands flawless hand-eye coordination, lightning-fast reflexes, and nerves of steel. V was not just a soldier. He was a world-class FPV pilot who had honed his craft over thousands of hours, turning complex maneuvers into second nature. His mission was not as simple as flying in a straight line. That would be suicide. To evade detection, Night Fury had to fly at an extremely low altitude under 50 meters. V piloted it on a zigzagging erratic path, using the curvature of the Earth and the chaos of the sea's surface to hide from Russian radar. The drone streaked forward at around 65 kilometers per hour, a silent wasp closing in on its colossal prey. For the entire 35-kilometer journey, a flight that took over 45 minutes, V had to maintain absolute focus. Every wave, every gust of wind was a potential disaster. The image in his goggles flickered and filled with static, but he held the course. He could feel every vibration of the drone, hear the whine of its motors through his headset. It was a tense dance between man and machine, life and death. As the Boyko Bravo rig began to materialize on the horizon, V's heart must have pounded. The target was in sight. He could see the faint lights on the platform, the shadowy figures of soldiers moving about, completely oblivious to the doom approaching. This was the decisive moment. Months of training, all the preparation, the immense pressure, all came down to these final few minutes. V gently nudged the controls, lining Night Fury up for its final attack run, aimed directly at the heart of the enemy's defense. A small impact was about to cause a massive explosion, a moment that would change the balance of power in the Black Sea forever. Part 5. The Killing Blow. The blinding moment that shattered the night. The video's pace quickens. It uses thermal imaging and targeting reticle views from the drone. The moment of impact is emphasized with slow motion and powerful sound design. Time seemed to slow down. Through Night Fury's lens, the Boyko Bravo rig loomed larger and larger, a steel monster against the night sea. The pilot V was no longer thinking, only acting on instinct. His fingers danced over the controls, making final, imperceptible adjustments. The target wasn't the entire rig that was too large and too fortified. The target was a single point of failure, an Achilles heel identified by Ukrainian intelligence, the antenna of the Neva B radar. The 2.5-meter-tall antenna was unarmored, fragile, and completely exposed on the very top of the structure. It was the brain and the most vulnerable part of the entire system. V aimed for the joint connecting the antenna dish to the control unit below. A strike here wouldn't just damage the radar, it would obliterate it beyond repair. On V's display, low battery warnings flashed frantically. He had only minutes, perhaps seconds left. 800 meters out. 500 meters. 200 meters. Finally, a Russian soldier on the platform spotted it. A tiny black speck hurtling towards them at impossible speed. He pointed, shouted. Another scrambled for a rifle. Alarms began to blare, but it was far too late. At exactly 3:20 a.m. Night Fury fulfilled its destiny. A brilliant flash, followed by a deafening crack, shattered the night's silence. The 3-kilogram explosive charge, though small, was focused on a single point with devastating effect. The Neva B radar's fragile antenna disintegrated into 1,000 pieces. Shards of metal, plastic, and electronics rained down. A plume of black smoke erupted from the point of impact. Back in the bunker on Snake Island, V's screen went black. Mission complete. The steel eye of Russia was blind. But this was just the prelude. The strike by Night Fury was not an isolated act. It was the opening move, a sacrificial gambit to clear the way for a much larger, more devastating assault. Neutralizing the radar created a safe corridor, a vulnerability in the Russian defenses that could not be patched immediately. And through that opening, a true storm was about to be unleashed. This time, the weapon wasn't a tiny drone, but a fleet of maritime monsters built for total destruction. Part 6. The Gates of Hell open. The Sea Baby fleet is unleashed. The video shifts to dramatic footage of the Sea Baby USVs showing their speed and power. Graphics illustrate their internal structure, highlighting the massive explosive payload and the resonant blast effect. If Night Fury was a precision scalpel, what came next was a sledgehammer. The moment the Neva B radar went silent, a new, far deadlier threat was unleashed. This was Ukraine's fleet of unmanned surface vessels, USVs, codenamed Sea Baby. These were no homemade contraptions. The Sea Baby is a product of Ukraine's defense industry, designed and built for one purpose: to hunt and destroy high-value Russian naval assets. With their 6-meter length and stealthy angular gray-painted hulls, they glide across the water at a blistering top speed of 49 knots, about 90 kilometers per hour, powered by twin 2,000 horsepower engines. They are nearly invisible to radar and incredibly difficult to hit with conventional weapons. But what makes the Sea Baby a true nightmare is what it carries inside. Each USV is packed with a 1,000 kilogram warhead, a full metric ton of high explosives. That's over 300 times the payload of the Night Fury drone. The lethality, however, isn't just about size. Ukrainian engineers designed a unique warhead system they call the resonant blast effect. Instead of a single explosive block, the warhead is comprised of multiple smaller shaped charges strategically arranged around the bow. When the primary charge detonates, it initiates a sequential chain of secondary blasts. This effect not only creates a massive fireball with a core temperature exceeding 3,500 degrees Celsius, hot enough to melt structural steel, but also generates a prolonged resonating shockwave. It doesn't just push, it tears, vibrates, and shatters the target's structure from within. With the Boyko Bravo's radar neutralized, the Sea Baby fleet could approach undetected. There was no need for stealthy flight paths now. They raced forward a pack of sea wolves, closing in on wounded prey. Ukrainian mission planners, armed with detailed blueprints of the rig, knew its exact structural weak point, the central load-bearing joint that connected the crew's living quarters to the main drilling platform. This was no longer an attack to blind the enemy. This was an attack for total annihilation. The goal was to trigger a catastrophic structural collapse, destroying the entire platform and sinking it to the bottom of the sea, ensuring Russia could never use it as a forward operating base again. At 3:50 a.m., just 30 minutes after Night Fury's strike, the first Sea Baby slammed into its target. The Black Sea was about to witness a fireworks display of death. Part 7. Wreckage of a Fortress. A new battlefield is forged. The final scenes show the spectacular destruction of the rig. Fire, smoke, and collapse. The video ends with the rig sinking, followed by a powerful message about the changing face of war. The first explosion was apocalyptic. A massive fireball erupted from the base of the rig, engulfing the crew quarters. The intense heat melted steel and the shockwave ripped walls apart. But that was only the beginning. Seconds later, the second and third Sea Babies struck in sequence, targeting other pre-calculated structural weaknesses. The resonant effect of the blasts created a catastrophic chain reaction. Fuel and compressed gas tanks on the rig, used to power its generators, detonated in sympathy, creating even larger secondary fireballs. The entire platform shuddered as if struck by an earthquake. The massive steel support beams designed to withstand the fiercest of storms now buckled and snapped like twigs. In less than 5 minutes, the heavily fortified Russian fortress had been turned into a hell on earth. Its towers began to list, then collapsed into the sea with a deafening roar of tortured metal. What remained was a scorched skeleton, slowly sinking beneath the black waves, leaving behind a slick of oil and thick plumes of smoke coiling into the sky. The Night Fury operation was a success beyond all expectations. For a total cost of just over $600, 3 Sea Babies and 1 FPV drone, Ukraine had eliminated a Russian military asset worth hundreds of millions of dollars. But the true value of this mission cannot be measured in money. Strategically, it removed a major threat, reopening the Western Black Sea for Ukrainian operations and crippling Russian control. Technologically, it proved the devastating power of asymmetric warfare. It demonstrated that cheap, intelligent, and creatively deployed weapons can inflict damage on par with far more expensive systems. FPV drones and USVs are no longer experimental concepts. They are a deadly reality of the modern battlefield. And psychologically, it sent an unmistakable message to Moscow. Your radar is blind. Your forward bases are vulnerable. And your warships are next. The attack on the Boyko rig was not the final battle, but it was a decisive turning point in the war at sea. It proved that in the 21st century, conflicts are not won by the number of tanks or ships alone, but by innovation, adaptability, and the courage of those who dare to think differently. A $500 drone started it all, and from the ashes of the Boyko rig, a new era of naval warfare was born.